economy has demonstrated remarkable resilience to a series of unthinkable events. But this has come with a high cost. First, loss of potential output. When we look at the world today, 2023, only one large economy, this of the United States, has fully recovered and even is exceeding slightly its pre-COVID trajectory. Everybody else is still falling behind. Euro area, 2% below its pre-COVID trajectory. China and most emerging markets around 5%. Low-income countries, 6, 7, and more percent. ASEAN is actually quite affected because ASEAN was projected to grow so strongly before the pandemic. And this growth dropped by half. The result is loss of potential output of 8%. So this is one significant consequence of what we have been living through. Two, interruption of supply chains because of the pandemic, because of the war in Ukraine. They have put pressure on prices, and inflation in most advanced economies and many emerging markets is going down, but not down enough. We expect that interest rates would stay high all the way through 24, possibly into 25. That has consequences for ASEAN in terms of obviously cost of money, but also in terms of the strength of currencies, pushed down by this high interest rate of the Fed, of the European Central Bank. So what should ASEAN do? Well, first, let me give you the very good news about ASEAN. We started from that. ASEAN should continue to grow dynamically. It is a bright spot on a rather dim horizon. Global growth this year, 3%. ASEAN, 4.5%, you said 4.6%. This is going to continue into next year. Sustaining this growth momentum, very important. It is contributing to you, to the people of ASEAN. It is contributing to the world. ASEAN is delivering 10% of global growth. This is almost twice your share in the world economy. To sustain that sound, vibrant growth, ASEAN needs three things. Number one, macroeconomic and financial stability, so there is consumer and investor confidence. This has served you well before the pandemic. It needs to remain so. And that is where the difficult choices come. Ibu Sri Mulyani, the finance, your successor here, she needs to balance on one side helping the most vulnerable people in Indonesia, providing incentive to businesses, and on the other side, build buffers against future shocks. So how could she do it? Well, make sure that taxes are collected in full, eliminate tax avoidance, and concentrate public spending where it would make the biggest dent. And that is my second point. Invest in education and skills. Young people of Asia, of the ASEAN countries, they have to have the skills for tomorrow. Because we know artificial intelligence is already here. I'll tell you a funny story. My family gave me a present for my birthday, painting designed by ChatGPT. Interesting painting. So we are already looking into which are the skills that would be most effective. It looks like not the lowest end, not the highest end, but everything in the middle. Invest in the digital connectivity. There is no future without it. That has to be done. And of course, invest in the green economy. But my most important message to ASEAN is speak loud and clear of the need for international cooperation. No one is better suited than you because you embrace diversity. You have unity based on diversity. So I would finish by saying, for somebody like me, I sit in my office, the world economy is full of problems. I get on a plane, I come to Jakarta, and I am so uplifted by ASEAN. So my message to everybody here from the ASEAN countries, I love you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristalina. Now let me come back to you, Ajay. Seems to me that when the Bretton Woods was established, it wasn't designed to face the multifaceted crisis, the health issue, the pandemic, etc. So I was wondering if you can share with us, I understand that the World Bank is working on its way through an evolution process that I understand aims to transform the 78-year-old institution. So can you give us a status update on the process, touch on your version, and help us understand what ASEAN can expect in the future?
I'm glad you asked me a different question. I didn't know how to follow up on that one, right? I've been at the bank 90 days. And before that, I spent a few months during the nomination to election process traveling around the world. And I picked up a couple of messages very clearly. And the first message was that the idea that you can somehow segregate poverty and the fight against poverty from climate change and the fight against climate change, or from pandemics. You know this well, you co-chair the pandemic fund, that you can separate that from poverty, or you can separate fragility and conflict from each of these, or food insecurity. I think these are all seriously intertwined crises. And therefore, the nature of the challenge ahead of society has multiplied in its complexity by the nature of the intertwining of these crises. That's the first kind of message that comes across very clearly. The second message that comes across is that the institutions that were built for purpose 75 years ago, that purpose has evolved and changed, and the institutions need to evolve and change with them. It's not that they don't do great work every day. I was in a mangrove sort of plantation yesterday in Indonesia, and if we do this right as a country and the institution of the bank, we can get to really transform the way mangroves are developed and organized here, such that not only do you create the better forest cover, but you also help the livelihood of people living in those plantations. Now, if you do that well, then Indonesia is contributing a global public good by virtue of what it's doing with mangrove plantations, which is absolutely where we should go. So there is all this going on. There's good work every day. Stunting effort in Indonesia, education in Vietnam, there are examples across the place. The point is, all that makes sense, but more has to happen and differently from the way we were doing it till now. So I guess we're going through an evolution process. The G20 has pushed hard for the multilateral development banks and the international organizations to adapt and change to this requirement. I will give you 4 buckets of thoughts where we are. The first bucket is redefining the vision and mission of the bank. I think the progress made on poverty reduction over the last 30, 40 years was impressive around the world. Most of it came from generating jobs. During the pandemic, that job generation engine slowed down and reversed. And in fact, poverty alleviation reversed in many parts of the world. ASEAN is an exception which has come out of it well, but many parts of the world are seeing an increase in poverty, not a reduction. So the reality is that we have to go past poverty, and we have to incorporate climate and pandemics and fragility and food insecurity into our lives. And so the mission, the vision of the bank will be to create a world free of poverty but on a livable planet. And by livable planet, we include all these other dimensions. So we can expand the aperture of which the way the bank looks at a problem and go from only poverty to all of these and expand our appetite and our view and our knowledge and our capacity to deal with these. That's kind of the first big piece. It is to me a big piece because getting it right enables the bank's outstanding employees to focus on a much bigger picture. The second piece is how we work. And I think there are multiple parts, but the first part is to measure output, not input. And what do I mean by that? I think saying how many projects we finance or how many dollars we put in is interesting and important, but what is even more important is how many girls went to school because of the centers we built, or how many people got a better job which pays better because they were lucky enough to go to a skilling center that the bank had worked on with the local government, or how many greenhouse gas emissions we managed to avoid and then convert through a carbon market into the transfer of resources for that community as well as the government to benefit from, and so on. The output, not the input. Measuring that is very important. The second part that's very important is going to be how we work in partnership with others. My opinion and the opinion of many of us is that there is not enough money in the world of multilateral banks, of governments, or of philanthropy to solve the kind of issues we are discussing. If you believe in the estimates that people say that you need $1 trillion a year to be invested just in renewable energy, to turn the tide over the next coming decades, $1 trillion a year does not exist on our balance sheets or in philanthropy or in government. So we have to get the private sector in as well. We need all shoulders at the wheel. So to give you an example, a few days ago, we announced a partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank that we would work on 3 issues together in Latin America. The Amazon and all aspects of the Amazon. Reforestation, but importantly, looking after the communities in the Amazon. Second, dealing with the challenges of climate adaptation in the Caribbean, which is severely stressed by what is going on. And third, digitization and its benefits for governance and education in Latin America. Now, if Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank get together, that's 2 shoulders at the wheel. And like that, we need to work with the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, as well as, most importantly, with the private sector as well, to bring this money in. So there's a series of things we're trying to do in our approach to partnership, which we hope will bend the curve over the coming years. And then I'd say the last and not the least of this has to do with capital and the adequacy of capital. The G20 laid out a common framework, which we are working on to help look at the capital adequacy systems in the bank, whether it's equity to loan ratios, or it's the kind of things we can do with hybrid capital and portfolio guarantees and the funding of concessional capital for countries to be able to put to resource on the right problems. All those are part of what we are doing. We're going to look to our donor nations and philanthropies to now put their shoulder to the wheel to help us build up this capital buffer. But then once this is done, and we can say we are a better bank than we used to be, a good bank but an even better bank, at that time will be the time to discuss what should be our common appetite for a bigger bank in the future. And I think that's the staging of where we are with the evolution process. When you come to Marrakesh, which I know you will, hopefully you will see more of this being discussed with the governors there in October.
Thank you very much, Sajai. Now let me turn to you, Klaus. You mentioned about this Industrial 4.0. If I may raise my concern, my biggest concern is not about Industrial 4.0, but about Governance 4.0. Yeah, because I can imagine that the product cycle is getting shorter and shorter, and will be very difficult for the policymakers or the regulators to come up with the regulation, which is maybe your regulation will be obsolete in the next 6 months. Under this kind of situation, what we probably need is an agile bureaucracy, but agile bureaucracy is an oxymoron. So how, in your view, how do you see sort of like, the role of the governance here, especially for many ASEAN countries? Is there anything that they can particularly do related to address this issue?
If we look at public-private cooperation, I think we have to find very flexible ways to coordinate the efforts. I mean, governments still provide direction, but business provides the innovative power. And I would argue that long term, with all the importance of capital, we move from the era of capitalism to the era of talentism, which means that the key competitive factor will become innovation and not anymore low cost or the availability of capital. Of course, they are necessary, but the decisive factor will be the innovative capacity and power of a country. And here, of course, ASEAN has a great privilege. It has a useful entrepreneurial it has a young generation. And I have met here so many young entrepreneurs. I'm very impressed. But I would add one other thing. I think we move not only from capitalism to talentism in some way, but even more important, we move from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. And I'm very proud to see how the business community has embraced this concept, which is now very much contested in certain other parts of the world. Business is not only here to create prosperity. I think business has also a social role, which means to serve society and to take care of the environment. So we have to build this notion of stakeholder capitalism into all of our activities as business leaders. And let me make a last comment here. The future, and I repeat what has been said several times, will be decided by the flexibility and adaptability of economies. And here, the more diverse an economy is organized, the less it is, the more it is, let's say, suitable to sustain shocks.
Thank you very much, Pak Klaus. Now let me turn to you, Pak Watanabe. As the Indo-Pacific is projected to be the largest global growth contributor for the next 30 years, how can ASEAN sustain this upward trajectory and increase its economic significance?
Thank you very much. Let me highlight two obvious challenges ahead: digital transformation and sustainability. On digital, the launching of ASEAN initiative of Digital Economy Framework Agreement is very timely to set a regional framework on governance of digital technologies, cyber security, and people's citizen relationship with emerging technologies. This is very timely and appropriate initiative. On sustainability, this region is continued to grow. It's quite different from other regions. So we need to sustain growth while addressing affordable energy transition toward net zero. That's a huge challenge. And the area is here to design a practical and affordable pathway to achieving the net zero by facilitating realistic energy transitions and innovative energy finance. And so my last point would be for ASEAN to sustain growth trajectory in the long term, the ultimate test is to achieve peace and stability in ASEAN and in the wider region of the Indo-Pacific. And ASEAN's experience of community building and as an anchor of the regional cooperation has brought us together like we do today is a global asset. So if ASEAN's basic principle of mutual trust and mutual growth and mutual respect can be a key principle for cooperation in wider region of Indo-Pacific. That's a sort of cornerstone for ASEAN and for this region to continue to grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, I think unfortunately, the time is up and we only have 45 minutes. I'm sure there are so many questions that I would like to pose to all these great panelists, but the time is up. I don't want to summarize our discussion, but let me highlight some of the couple important points. I think we are living in a very uncertain world now, but as we heard from the distinguished panelists, we see that there is some optimism that ASEAN can continue to become the bright spot of the global economy. Yeah, provided that we continue to maintain the so-called the good economic 101, maintaining the governance, and also adapting for the new technology and also improve the institution. With that note, then let me invite to all of you to give the big round of applause to our great panelists. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our dearest moderator, Bapak Hatip Basri, the former Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, for wonderfully moderating this illuminating session with our wonderful speakers. We'd like to thank our speakers for extending your great knowledge and expertise with all of us. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, on to our next session. Please allow me to invite to the stage Mr. Arshad Rashid, the Chair of ASEAN Business Advisory Council, to deliver a briefing on ABAC's programs and their linkages to AIPF and the Indo-Pacific. Let us give Mr. Arshad Rashid the biggest round of applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. I have only a short time for this briefing session in which I will share my thought based on my ASEAN point of views. ASEAN businesses are observing the dynamics and developments of the Indo-Pacific, where ASEAN is the center of this area. I have traveled to many dialogue partners countries, and they are very much interested in engaging more constructively. There are some thoughts I believe are crucial to align in different sectors in between ASEAN and Indo-Pacific. First, we have massive potentials towards enhancing our digital economy and facilitating cross-border data flow. The Indo-Pacific is the world's fastest growing region for internet adoptions and digital connectivity between people and businesses. Our region has been ambitious in our goals for economic co-creations, encouraging our private sectors to take on a bigger role in the development of our telecommunications infrastructure, maximizing our digital opportunities. Just yesterday, we, the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, or ASEAN BAC, just launched the ASEAN QR Code to build the business ecosystem in supporting the cross-border digital payment. We wish to expand this to more Indo-Pacific countries. Second, we have a growing young and educated population that will enter the workforce with more advanced digital skills. Partnered with the initiative taken by Indo-Pacific members to facilitate knowledge and technology exchanges, to drive our future generations holds the necessary skill set and the resources to drive our industry to a new level. Because of our progress, we are well the way towards the more advanced world. The cooperation focusing on human talents is crucial, and the enhancement of social-cultural development that put people-oriented solution must be the key. Third, the Indo-Pacific, and especially with ASEAN members, hold some of the world's greatest potentials for renewable clean energy and high-quality carbon credits. Our region is especially susceptible to climate change. However, we have an incredible capacity to contribute to the supply of clean energy solutions such as solar, wind, and geothermal power, as well as contribute to the supply chains of electric vehicles. Our partnership within the Indo-Pacific are significant to our success in transitioning over the green economy. Yesterday, also during the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit Forum, we deeply committed in building the ASEAN Net Zero Hub and Carbon Center of Excellence to bring businesses together in promoting decarbonization and net zero economy. Fourth, our private sectors, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, are rapidly developing and taking on a bigger role in the regional and global value chains. We have made significant progress over the last few decades in mobilizing the transfer of experiences and expertise to benefit our businesses. The upgrades to our digital infrastructures, fintech, and investment platforms provide small medium enterprises with greater access to resources than they ever had before. MSME must be the priority of cooperations within the Indo-Pacific conversation. We highly appreciate the commitment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises for hosting this ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, meeting businesses and governments to talk about this important region. To continue the conversation, finally, we want to announce the upcoming establishments of the Indo-Pacific Business Network. This new initiative centers around the Indo-Pacific region, encompassing 40 economies, over 4 billion people, and $47.19 trillion in economy activity. The world's fastest growing region and in the heart of the Indo-Pacific. Many inspiring and impactful businesses. As a continuation of our initiative for ASEAN this year, I'm excited to announce the establishment of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Business Network, or AIBN, that is designed for regional connection to amplify growth across. It embraces inclusivity, where businesses of all sizes and industries come together. It is a multi-stakeholder platform that aims to bring policy impact and forge industry partnership, propelling Indo-Pacific economic integration. Let us know if you are very interested in that, but again, appreciate the time given to me to actually have this brief about ASEAN and how ASEAN played a role as the center of growth in Indo-Pacific. With that, thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arshad Rashid, the chair of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Thank you very much for your great insights as well as for your briefing on ABAC programs and the linkages to AIPF as well as Indo-Pacific. And I hope everyone has gained incredible insights from Mr. Arshad Rashid as well as taking note. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to the next segment of the ASEAN Indo-Pacific Forum, I'd like to once again highlight how important our forum is, as our forum serves one of the most notable events for all of us here to highlight as well as gain the most updated and the most accurate information, especially with regards to ASEAN. And as our forum also aims to unlock further opportunities to build better connections between ASEAN countries and the Indo-Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that everyone has gained incredible insights here while mingling with the great companies and the brightest minds around you. And today we're also going to discuss three major issues that is concerning the region. And that is first on the green infrastructure and resilient supply chains. And second, on sustainable and innovative financing. And lastly, third, on digital transformation and creative economy. And we can only tackle these three issues if we come together and highlight the power of collaborations, identify challenges, as well as tangible projects, while highlighting on the power of collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, alone we can only do so much, but together we can move mountains. Together we are an ocean. We are a force to be reckoned with. So ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to our next session, it will be on our next plenary session on a quick glance on three AIPF sub-themes. But before we continue to our next segment, allow us to once again extend our profound gratitude and sincere thanks to everyone for your participation and for your attendance here today. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, terima kasih banyak atas kehadiran dan juga partisipasi Bapak Ibu sekalian di acara hari ini. Dan selanjutnya kita akan mulai ke sesi plenary discussion ketiga. We're going to continue to our next segment, and that is to the next plenary discussion on a quick glance on three AIPF sub-themes. So without further ado, allow me to invite our moderator, the chair of ASEAN and UK Business Council and a member of the House of Lords, the Right Honourable Lord Faizi. Let us give him a big round of applause. Thank you very much, and allow me to invite our esteemed speakers, Ms. Marisa Drew, the CSO of Standard Chartered, as well as Mr. Patrice Kane, the CEO of Thale Group, Mr. Ahmad Mazari, the President of Microsoft Asia, Mr. Abdulaziz Alobaidili, the CEO of Masdar, and Mr. Sunarso, the CEO of BRI. And to our wonderful moderator, I trust that the time and floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope my microphone is working. My name is Ed Faizi. I want to say a huge thank you to the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for inviting me to moderate this important panel full of massively distinguished speakers. It's going to be a fantastic discussion and a bit of a future gaze into what the world, ASEAN and Indonesia might look like thanks to the technologies and financing represented on our panel. I'm lucky enough to be the chair of the UK ASEAN Business Council, which is the leading UK-based organisation that seeks to grow trade between Southeast Asia and the UK. And the UK, as you know, is the newest dialogue partner of ASEAN and also has recently joined the CPTPP. And it's been brilliant to be here at the ASEAN Business Investment Summit and now at the Indo-Pacific Forum. Let me just introduce the panel in more detail. Although you're sitting in a slightly different order to what it says on my paper. But let's start. Marisa Drew, the Chief Sustainability Officer of Standard Chartered. Standard Chartered has been in Southeast Asia for 150 years. Not you, Marisa, but you have been a banker for 35 years working in capital markets. Patrice Caine, the chairman and CEO of Thales Group, which is a French company, so you'll see a little bit of British-French rivalry, but actually Patrice is keen to point out that the UK is the second biggest investment area for Thales, and in many ways is an Anglo-French company. I'm delighted as well to